Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of the Unlaced podcast. Been very pumped this year. We've had a lot of great guests. We've had a lot of great support. We're climbing each episode, more listens, more people tuning in. So I can't thank you enough. For everyone that is new here, as I always say, please give us a like and subscribe. It's how we grow. And for the regulars that are coming back, I mean, what would we be without you? So thank you so much. Bit of a twist today because I do love my cricket. It is the sport of Australia, the summer of Australia. We love cricket. And we haven't really had too many cricket guests on. And we've caught a big fish today in Todd Murphy from the Victorian Bushrangers, the Sydney Sixers, and of late, the Baggy green's been donned as well, mate. So thank you for coming on the show.
No worries. Thanks for having me, mate. I don't think I've ever been in the back of a van like this before, but I'm embracing it.
Yeah, that's good. Well, as we said before, first guest that we've seen have a fan come up and ask for a selfie before you've walked on. That was slightly intimidating for me.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a different world since I've got back from India, but it's nice to always get that sort of stuff from little kids. And I think you can see, when someone does see you and notices you, it does make their day a little bit. So it's not much to give back from my end. Yeah,
I can imagine. It's pretty good. And we're actually around a cricket ground too now, so the irony in that. But before we go into some of the cricket stuff, I mean, what's been happening with your life of late? How's life been since you've come back from India?
Yeah, different. It's off season now, so sort of just try to take a little bit of a step back and sort of reflect on what's happened over the past sort of 6-12 months. It's been pretty crazy and it's been hectic. So enjoyed a bit of time off now. And I think it's the same as every athlete. You have a couple of weeks off and then you sort of itch to get back into it. So been around Melbourne for the last few weeks and been enjoying it.
So you're a big golf guy too, aren't you? Have you been playing a lot of golf?
I like my golf. I wouldn't say I'm great at it. So
anyone?
Yeah, that's right. I enjoy getting out there every now and then. I probably don't play as much as I would like to. It's hard with sort of travel mid-season to feel like you get a flow with your golf because, but then having a bit of time now, I've tried to get out on the golf course, but with Melbourne weather, it doesn't make it easy as well.
Yeah. Where would you say your strengths and weaknesses lie on the golf course? If there are any strengths.
It's a great question. My drive can be good, but the last few rounds I've played, I've sprayed them both ways, which doesn't help.
Okay.
But the last round I played, which was Sunday, we only got through 4 holes. It was absolutely belting down with rain. Right. But the last drive I hit, I bombed it straight. So I'm going to hold on to that for a while.
Right, but that's what keeps you coming back with golf.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want more now.
Yeah, I want more. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not bad off the drive. I capitulate when it's like 50 yards, 80 yards from like the green or around the pin.
Yeah, I'd say my weakness, and my eyes aren't my strength, so my putting's not great. The attention to detail that you need for that doesn't hold me in great stead.
So what's the story with Tiger Woods? His dad, when he taught him golf, he started like putting first. He worked his way back with all the clubs.
Yeah,
which shows how critical that is.
Definitely, and I think being a cricketer, all you want to do is stand up there and just try and bomb it. The little touch stuff doesn't help me. But
I actually saw a swing of and probably typical Steve Smith, but his golf swing is as unorthodox as it gets.
It is ugly, but I think
does it work though?
I actually haven't played around with him, but knowing him and knowing the way he thinks about things, I think he would make it work and he'd find a way to do it.
Like, surely that's, like, I can't explain it. We have to maybe put a clip of it. It's ridiculous. It's like a slash, I don't know, crouch.
It almost looks like a 6-year-old with arthritis trying to swing the club.
Yeah, of course. Well, we have very good friends at Dabble who support our show and learning this because obviously I've got into my horse racing heaps more since I've started working with Dabble, but you actually own a horse.
I do. I don't say that very proudly because it's not very good. But I think I've always grew up around horse racing. Like since I was little, Dad's always sort of had shares in horses. So always used to go to the racetrack with Dad. He'd pick me up on a Friday arvo from school and we'd head down to Melbourne to Moonee Valley and that sort of stuff. So loved it. I've always sort of wanted to go into a horse and opportunity popped up with some of my close mates and family, but it hasn't been a good one.
Man, I saw a clip the other day of a group of 5 guys. They bought, where was it? Might have been Aintree. I think it's in the UK.
Yeah, okay.
And these guys bought a horse for £1,200 and it won a race and there was 5 of them just going nuts and they were so happy and I was like, man, I think that might be the height of happiness.
That's
imagine that.
Me and my mates talk about it all the time. That's, I think, pinnacle of what you want.
Yeah, like group one.
Yeah, everyone dreams of that, like having a horse, but it's not that easy.
Yeah,
I've found that out.
So when you punt on horses, do you have like a pretty calculated view of what you're doing or are you a bit hit and hope?
Depends what I'm doing, but yeah, if I'm just sitting there on a Saturday having a few beers and watching the races, I'm happy just to throw some darts and see what happens.
I love that. Yeah, that's me as well. Mate, for those that don't know, your journey in probably the last 12 months it's been pretty extraordinary. Especially, I don't know if it's even more extraordinary as an off spinner too, because it's really sort of not as many positions in the team as, a batsman or even a medium pace bowler or fast bowler as such. So to get this sort of level of what you've achieved, but just to reel off some, obviously you've had a pretty strong start with the Bushrangers in your first class career. You've had a great run with the Sydney Sixers. And then for those that don't know, which mind-boggling if you don't, Todd Murphy's antics in India, getting picked with the Baggy Green, and like what a performance you had over there as well, playing for Australia and playing against a batting lineup that's arguably the best in the world too. But has life changed since then? Like, I mean, you're pretty well, like for instance, the reason why I say life's changed, there was a few people from Sportsbet that went over, and there was a bloke that was wearing glasses and painted the 36 on the back for Todd Murphy. So it's pretty surreal.
It is, yeah. There's been some sort of stuff that's, happened, I suppose, over the last couple of months in particular that, it's definitely like caught me by surprise, and I'm trying to just embrace sort of what comes with it. But yeah, it's been crazy, and I don't really know how to explain and sort of what's taken place, because I think it's all happened a lot faster than what I ever expected or hoped for. So it's been amazing. But I think like I always try and bring myself back to like how I was brought up and that, and like life hasn't changed in a way, but then there's also little things that have changed. So it's cool to say that I'm an Australian cricketer and I've got the Baggy Green now. So but also that doesn't mean anything to a lot of other people. So
just to go into, because I want to go into your cricketing journey a little bit before we sort of go into the heights of India, but playing that well in India too, with the population they have and the fanatic nature they are with cricket, like that almost would have blown you up. I can't think of a bigger test series outside of the Ashes that can sort of blow someone up if they do really well in. So I imagine the Indian fan base sort of looking after you would be, well, maybe not a fan because you bowled so well, but would give more eyes on you, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And like I think going over there, it opened up my eyes to how big sort of world cricket is, and they're just like frantic for the way they love their cricket, and it's hectic over there, and they do, like their knowledge of everyone is amazing. So I think, I don't think going over there many people sort of knew or expected much from me. So to be able to make a bit of an impact was pretty cool. And I think, people appreciate that.
Absolutely. So what got you into cricket? Where did that inspiration come from? Because you grew up in, was it rural New South Wales, you would say?
So grew up right on the border of of New South Wales and Victoria, in Chukamima. Right. I'm a New South Wales boy. So
that's what I was going to ask though. Can we claim you?
No, I'm a Mima boy, so that's New South Wales side, but
were you born in Echuca though?
I was born in Echuca, yeah. No hospital on the New South Wales side. So
I wonder why.
But from there, I think sort of I've always been, like with my cricket, always been a Victorian, if that makes sense. So Melbourne was a lot closer than Sydney. But growing up back home, Dad was pretty influential sort of around the local clubs back there. And I think sort of from, as early as I can remember, he was captain coach of the Mima Cricket Club. And my, I suppose, first memories was just always on a Saturday with down there at the A-grade cricket, and I used to just love walking around and pestering all the older blokes and stealing all their gear, and just the love from it there. And it helped. I had an older brother who was 3 years older than me, and he was mad into cricket as well. So I think sort of, from the backyard to indoor cricket to, Dad's cricket, sort of the love for it just grew from there.
Were you always bowling off spin?
Nah.
I feel like that's a common thing though, isn't it? Spin you kind of adopt.
I think so. And like, I don't think off spin was very like fancied either, sort of growing up. Like I think Nathan Lyon's actually done an amazing job to make it cool in a
popular
way, and people want to do it. So like growing up, I always loved Warnie and that sort of stuff with leg spin. But I was a batter that bowled medium pace sort of until I was 16. So
really? So that late?
Yeah. So it's sort of, and that's like what I said before, it's happened really fast.
That's like 6 years ago.
Yeah. So it's obviously the best thing I've ever done.
Holy shit.
So it's pretty.
Imagine if you started bowling at 12.
It's pretty crazy when I sort of reflect on that. And it was a point in time where like I didn't enjoy bowling medium pace that much, sort of that age, and sort of just thought, why not bowl off spin? And it sort of grew from there.
So what, like the mechanics of off spin for you, learning it at such a young age, was that something you were quite natural at? Is that something you had to go sort of tirelessly and work at? Because it is an art form. Like when you hear, about to call him Gary Lyon, Nathan Lyon, talk about it, he speaks about it like it's not just bowling a ball, like it's an art form. It's, it's a chess game. There's so much to it.
Yeah, I think, when I first started, I probably didn't have the knowledge of that. So I was lucky enough, a really well-accredited spin coach, Craig Howard, was from Bendigo. So I went down there and did a couple of sessions with him. And I think I had quite a good base to work from just naturally with the way the sort of ball come out of my hand, which I think's a pretty key thing that can be hard to teach. So, and then from there, he sort of just worked on my mechanics and how I sort of moved into the crease and all that sort of stuff. And then I think, as I grew as a player and the more cricket I played bowling off spin, I think all that sort of stuff comes with that. And like I still look at Nath now, and like he's 35 or whatever he is, and he's sort of still developing and getting better. So it is a long process of like being a spinner that it does take a long time to sort of master your art. And I think you're always evolving.
What would you say is the hardest thing to pick up or to execute when you are bowling off spin?
I think the thing that sort of I learned pretty early on was being an off spinner was you got to be able to just cop getting hit for six all the time and not letting it affect you too much. So that was sort of a big one that I think as a younger kid you can sort of get a bit flat on yourself if that happens, and you might think that you're not going as well as you are. But I think once you learn that's part of the game, and with a batsman playing shots, then you're in the game as well. It can help.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that because I actually was wanting to wheel into Shane Warne. One of the things that I loved hearing Warney talk about, particularly when he's trying to educate young spinners, is that be prepared to get like smacked around and be okay with it. But like, even though you've hit the heights you have, is that something you can ever get comfortable with?
No, definitely not. And I know like within myself that's still still evolving.
Itches, right?
Like you get hit for six, you never like it.
Yeah.
But I think it also does it sort of G's you up a bit as well, and you want to try and prove a point and get back at the bloke that's just run down and launched you. So it is.
True.
I don't think it's something you ever get completely comfortable with, but I think the better you can deal with it, the better you're going to be.
Yeah, just to go into Shane Warne, because what made you not want to bowl leg spin? What was sort of off spin?
It's a lot harder craft. And
is it harder?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more variables and a lot more that can probably go wrong with it. So, I don't know. I don't think I was sort of as naturally gifted I always like stuffed around in the nets, and I'd try and bowl leg spin, I'd try and bowl off spin, but I think off spin sort of naturally I could control a bit better than leg spin, so it made more sense to me.
I reckon you could still bowl a mean leggy though.
No, I'm not sure about that.
Well, let's be honest. Like I can bat okay, but I'm not great by any stretch. Like if we're on a turf wicket and it's turning, how many balls do you think it takes for you to get me out?
No, well, you just run me through your upbringing with cricket before.
But I haven't played.
The people you hung around with.
I know.
I'm not sure I am getting you out.
Mate, yeah, you've got some big fish out in India. I reckon you could. But if you're bowling to an average Joe, like playing third grade cricket here, like how many balls do you reckon you could?
If I take you to India on those pitches, I'd back myself in one or two.
Really?
They were doing everything over there. But
that's awesome.
I think it's different. Like different conditions can play a big part of that, and it also I think it as a spinner it helps if batters are trying to score off you. If guys don't want to go at it, obviously makes it a lot harder as well.
Because even like and this just comes back to the point about spin and why it is such a tough art form. Because there could be a bloke in a first or second grade team like playing state cricket or whatever that can smack you around still.
Yeah.
Because spin sometimes it lofts up, it sits right, and you can still hit it. So even an average Joe can bump you around.
100%.
But you'll get them out. It's just a process of, are they going to get a few runs in the first place type thing. So that's why it's hard.
For sure. And I always gag with my mates. Like they play syntho cricket back home and they're always like, mate, if you come and play with us, you get absolutely whacked everywhere. Like,
really?
It brings you back down to earth pretty quickly. Saying that.
Yeah,
I imagine. It's like bowl and spin. It is one of those things that I think every batsman as well sort of stands there and goes, I can hit this for six. So that's part of the fun.
One person I mentioned before and legacy just comes to mind, and obviously what he's done, but Shane Warne, like I wanted to spend some time talking about him with you because obviously he's not just influenced cricket in general, but the game of spin. Pretty insane. I mean, what was sort of your influence of him and your take on Warney?
Yeah, I was actually lucky. So Dad played cricket at St Kilda with Warney, and they played in the first 11 premiership together. So sort of, it's funny how it works out, but like, sort of always had some good Warney stories growing up. But I think, as you sort of mentioned, that's what he did for the game, and sort of, he was probably the first sort of Australian rock star from cricket with the way that he was able to, I suppose, promote himself and just the impact he had on everyone else around him. So, I think growing up around that sort of era, watching him go like that, you looked on the TV and you thought, wow, like I would love to do that sort of thing one day. So it's pretty crazy what he's been able to do for the game. And obviously, tragic what happened to him, but I think he's left sort of a lasting legacy on everyone that's a cricketer in Australia.
What was the Gadding ball? Is that like something you look at? Is there a wicket that you've looked at his that stands out to you?
Yeah, the Gadding ball, I don't think you can get any better than that from a pure ball sense. But
I don't think he even says that was a fluke.
Yeah, I used to love like when he'd talk about bowl and spin, and when he'd like was setting a batsman up, and he used to talk about bowling him a cut shot so they could hit him for 4, but knowing that a couple of balls later he's going to spin one back through the gate, and like just to have the confidence to be able to say that's what you were planning on doing and it works, just like blows my mind, because I know that I'm nowhere near that and never will be. Like it's crazy to know that he can just give up a 4 because he wants to get him out a couple of balls later.
Yeah,
so
he's a tough cookie.
Yeah, just the confidence he had in himself and that sort of stuff was crazy.
He I think he did something for the Melbourne Stars where he like set up a bloke and he said it on the mic.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. And it like skidded through. He's like, this one's going to go straight, and just pinned him over. And I'm like, wow, like the guy's a genius.
Yeah, I think like listening to guys, sort of older guys speak about like when they play with him as well, I think that was just him. Like he just had that insane sort of knack of knowing what was going to happen and was always sort of a couple of steps ahead of the batter, which is, bizarre.
Yeah, he was good on the sledge too, which the Aussies would love. Yeah. Are you much of a sledger? I mean, like,
I don't think I've positioned myself at the moment.
But in any form of cricket, you don't do it. You've got to have some runs on the board at state cricket.
Gone through phases. Like when I was younger, I was probably a pretty lippy kid, but I think I've grown up enough now to realise that I don't need to do that, and I just out there have a good time, and I don't say too much really.
Is it at the highest level, because obviously everyone's so talented and there's small margins, is there a lot of chat going on in the cricket field at that level, like to kind of off-put people?
I was actually really surprised by how nice the series was played in India. I was sort of going over there with the expectation it was going to be pretty heated and there was going to be a fair few sort of verbal stoushes, but it was actually played in really good spirits, which took me by surprise. But I think like you still see it. I don't think it happens as much as it used to, but in state cricket, there's still times where like and like 4-day, 5-day cricket, there's a lot of things that go into the game, and like it does drag out at times, and it peters out to things where there's not much happening. So there's always someone trying to pick something up or get something going. It
would be remiss of me not to ask you. This is a hard question because I'm putting you on the spot, but the best sledge you might have ever heard on a cricket field?
I would have got plenty.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you know what? Cricketers, they're so witty on the cricket field. That's why I love the sledging game, because it's.
I don't know if I've got a witty one for you. I think just back, I look back to when I was young, I would have been 14 or 15 when I was playing sort of A grade country cricket, and just the abuse that you'd cop from older guys that I don't think they liked a young guy sort of coming through. And as I said before, I had a little bit of confidence back home in that, and there was always a guy like wanting to put you down and telling you that you're no fucking good or something like that. And you fool yourself, mate, and all that sort of stuff. But nothing that stands out.
What was because obviously we're going to claim you as a Victorian because you're born a Victorian, but there was obviously, I'm sure New South Wales was a possibility for you. What was the decisive factor for you to be a bushranger? Yeah,
I played sort of both pathways growing up. So I did the New South Wales pathway and the Victorian pathway. It was just like, I don't think there was really a decision. It was just so hard, like being from home, and I was still going to school back home, that like you'd go to a carnival in Newcastle, which was 11 hours away. You'd go to a carnival in Melbourne, which was only 3 hours away. So just like the commute wasn't really feasible going the New South Wales way. So it sort of always made sense to me to come to Melbourne. And as I said before, having dad who played for St Kilda, I sort of always aspired I wanted to come down here and play for St Kilda as well. So
do you play for St Kilda?
Yeah, so St Kilda is my premier club.
How good's that?
When I first moved down to Melbourne, I didn't have a state contract, so played my first 2 years at St Kilda before I got a contract. So hold that in good memories as well. Can
we discuss? I don't think people in cricket fans in general probably don't watch enough Shield cricket to understand, but how hard it is. Like, it's a pretty good standard, isn't it? From like what I've been told and from what I've heard, even like the Big Bash and stuff. Like we're really well regarded for our domestic sort of cricket. I mean, how difficult was the jump from maybe where you're playing for St Kilda and then straight away bowling against New South Wales and Queensland and stuff?
No, I think our domestic setup's sort of as strong as anyone around the world, and I think that probably comes back to the fact we've only got sort of 6 teams playing in the domestic competition. So I suppose the talent pool's quite small, which means that, the quality of players is quite high. So it's definitely been a challenge. I remember I played my first game for Victorian Shield cricket, and I think I got a wicket in my first over, and I didn't get a wicket for another 45 overs, and I was walked off the ground of that game going, wow, this is tough. I don't know if I'm ever going to play this again. And
really?
I think it's always one of those ones that it just takes you a few games to get used to and confidence at the level. So and you get when there's the test players back playing state cricket and that, the competition's so strong.
Yeah, the early stages of your career playing, I think you played the under-19 sort of World Cup or stuff like that for Australia. I mean, the young talent we have coming through, is that shining bright for Australia in regards to, I guess, the next wave of cricketers coming in your sort of age bracket?
Yeah, definitely. I think I look back to the under-19 World Cup and we probably didn't do as well as we should have over there, but I think you sort of look at it and like countries like India and that, I think they grow up with like kids leave school to just train and play cricket. So I think their development's probably fast tracked a little bit. Whereas I think like what we do so well in Australia is that I think we're able to maintain development for a lot longer period of time. So we might not be at the same level as they are sort of at 17, 18. But I think when you get into a professional system sort of at 19, 20 that we develop at a good rate consistently. So I think that the talent that's going to always come through Australian cricket is going to always be there.
Hey legends, just a quick break in this episode to thank our partners, Dabble, the gambling agency, where you dabble socially and gamble responsibly. Please only bet what you can and are willing to lose. Now, Dabble is one of the great platforms out there. I absolutely love using it. Very similar to Instagram, where you can follow some of the head honchos in the different sports, copy their bets and get some good wins on the board. Now, fortunately for me, I've been working with Dabble for over a year. This year, we are doing a stream every Tuesday night. It's called Jake's Take. It's from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. where you can go in the Dabble app. You can join me. We get guests on every week. We bet on the dogs. We have an absolute ball, and they're talking about sport and cutting up the shop around what's going around town across all codes. So come on down, check it out. Dabble socially, gamble responsibly, and let's get back into the episode. Is there anyone that the Australian cricket fan hasn't heard of that you think is going to be a big player come through? Because like obviously Will Pukovski for ages was kind of that guy that everyone was hearing about and so forth. But we always seem to have a superstar.
There will be one come, and I've been sort of out of the pathway system for a couple of years, so I haven't seen many sort of come through lately. But
even in state cricket, there's so many guys that are batting well. And
Teague Wall is a young guy that plays for WA that I think is going to be a really good player for Australia for a while. And Cooper Connolly, who I'm not sure if you heard of, but he was the one that won the Scorchers of BBL. So
really?
18-year-old kid that come out and whacked like 20 off 10 balls to win them the game and the title. So I think they're two WA boys that are probably going to have pretty good futures in the game.
I love hearing the insider knowledge on cricket. It's the best. Because you played all the formats, I mean, do you personally still find Test the best format? Because obviously T20's taken off, 100-ball cricket now's around and paying big money for certain players. Like for you, what are you a cricketing purist when it comes to the longer format?
Yeah, definitely. I think as a cricket lover, like the pinnacle of the game still Test cricket, and I don't think that'll ever change for me. And getting the taste of it over in India, I absolutely love that. But as you said, there's so much variety in cricket now, and sort of people, I don't think you can begrudge them for sort of wanting to go down the path of just playing white ball cricket with sort of the money that's on offer and the lifestyle that you can sort of have from it. So there definitely is going to be it's going to be times where players are going to prioritise white ball cricket over red ball cricket, and with the lucrative deals and all that. But yeah, for me at this stage anyway, like it's definitely red ball cricket comes first, and that's what I want to be. Did
you ever watch I'm sure you did, but the Prime, the Test?
Yeah, I have seen that.
Was Amazon in?
No, they weren't over there.
Oh,
so
wow.
I just missed out on that little thing.
No camera time.
It would have been cool to sort of see how it played out behind the scenes with it. But I actually watched the second season before I went to India because I was like, I just want to get a bit of a gauge of.
Imagine watching it, knowing you're going to go in it. That is fucked.
I was like, I wanted to watch it just to sort of get a little bit of understanding how it sort of all works. So, it was pretty cool to watch that sort of stuff.
Well, yeah, because Marnus Labuschagne speaks about probably up until India maybe then, he'd never played a test for Australia where they weren't around, the camera crew. Yeah. Because from his debut at the Ashes up until the last series, he'd never not played in front of him. Yeah,
I think it's like credit to Amazon for sort of jumping on that quite early and getting in because like it was a good watch. And I think like for the general cricket fan that wants to sort of understand what happens sort of behind the scenes, it's cool to see.
Mate, the first season, I was like riding the Jofra Archer bounces, knowing that I knew what happened, but still hoping Steve Smith would get out of the way of the ball.
Yeah,
I'm like, fuck me. Yeah. What am I doing here? I'm on my couch. But one of the things that stood out to me, and this comes back to Test cricket, was I never really understood, and this may not be correct, but the word test was like it's a test of like the body, the mind, everything in regards to like 5 full-on days of like high-level cricket. I mean, what sort of throughout that period it can be a bit of a roller coaster because you might make 100 and then you might nick off for one, or you might not get a wicket in the first innings and you take 10. Like, how do you sort of ride the emotion through a test match? Because I can imagine it's a pretty intense 5 days.
Yeah, I think I actually got a fair taste of sort of everything over there. Like, you spoke about the test of the body. Like, I come back from India just cooked. Like, I was sort of banged up. I'd never bowled as many overs as I had over there before, and like, it's just, it sort of just drains you mentally as well. Like, you play it up to be this massive thing. And like, I look back at my first test and like, it only went 2.5 days, but like at the end of that 2.5 days, I was absolutely spent. Like, I think just sort of everything you play up in your head and all the adrenaline that sort of goes through it. And then, as you said, you might have a high of taking a few wickets and then the low that comes with it. Like, my first 2 batting innings, I got a duck and 2 runs or something like that. So you walk off the ground pretty flat on yourself for that, and then got a couple of wickets which picks you back up. And I think it's sort of just, it's just a weird one where like not many sports, or don't, if any, go for that sort of period of time. So I think you've got to, and a lot of the older guys speak about it, you've got to be able to keep yourself pretty level sort of across those 5 days to get yourself through it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, there's a lot of famous cricket stories of like people nicking off early and then they're just a shit bloke for 4 days. Like, I feel like when you play at that level, you can't afford to do that, can you?
No, you can't.
Yeah. Well, I just want to go into the whole India experience, but before we do, because I know even me, there was ramblings of, the Australian cricket team is going to take more spin bowlers. They were going to, get a bit creative because of India and so forth with the wickets. And obviously you've got, outside of Nathan Lyon, you've got Ashton Agar, you had Swepson. When did you know you were sort of in the category to potentially go? And then what was sort of the period of, hey, yeah, you're coming to India? Wow.
Yeah, I think I'd played a couple of Australian A games and gone okay sort of in the 6 months leading up to it. And then there'd been a lot of publicity about India and what that was going to look like sort of as a spin point of view. And I think my first few games for Victoria went all right. And I thought that maybe potentially they might take me just as like a development sort of thing and give me a taste of what tour life looks like and go over there and learn about those conditions. But yeah, I don't think I ever expected to actually be over there and be a chance of playing. So when I found out I was going in the first place, I was absolutely stoked with, and I was like, this is going to be the best thing ever.
Who makes that call to you? Like, what did they say?
Yeah, so George Bailey, who's the head selector, he called me, and I think you sort of, if you're around the mark, like, because there was a period with the Indian visa, the way it works, you got to like do it a fair bit in advance. So got an email like 2 months before India saying that there's like an extended squad. Can you guys, like, there might have been 35 players, something like that. So a pretty big pool. Right. But it was, can you guys apply for a visa just in case you're selected to go? So
torture.
Yeah, and then then the lead up to that, and when like you sort of get notified of when the media announcement's going to be made of the test squad, and then the players usually get notified the day or two before it. So Bales called me and sort of just said that we've selected a squad and we want you to be a part of it. And like, it was sort of, I don't know if I remember much else that was said after that phone call, because like I was just, stoked with it and sort of couldn't quite believe it. But I think at that time as well, I didn't really think that I'd be going over there to play. Right. I thought it was sort of go over there and I might be the sort of third or fourth spinner in line and run drinks and be a net bowler over there. So it's sort of, the whole tour took me a bit by surprise.
So is that the best phone call you've ever had? Like, because that's every even like kids that just like bowling, like not playing backyard cricket, they're envisioning they're playing for Australia.
Yeah, I think like that was one of the coolest days I sort of had, knowing that, that was actually going to happen. Like, I was going to go on a test tour. So getting that phone call, and I knew that was the day they were going to notify everyone. So when I seen his number like pop up on my phone, I sort of shit myself in a way. I was like, fuck, I hope there's some good news here. And it was, it was. So it was amazing.
Was it test one you played? You called it. So what made you, I guess, what do you think why the selectors picked you for that first test? Was it your form going in? Was it they took a risk, or they knew you would deliver? Like, what was sort of communication on that?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I think sort of we had a good, I think it was a 9 or 10 day lead up before the first test where we had like a training camp, and like bowled a lot of balls there. And I think it sort of, the talk was around like what sort of combinations they went with spin bowling, and if they needed a left arm offie or if they wanted to play 2 right arm offies. And so I'm not exactly sure what their thinking behind it was entirely, but I think the message to me when I got told I was playing was just to go out there and don't change what I've been doing, and sort of, just back yourself in and see what happens.
It's crazy. Let's go into how surreal, because I think playing the Australian cricket team's a pretty big deal and sure. But there's always that saying, which I know you where the biggest job in the country is the Prime Minister, the second biggest is to captain the Australian cricket team. So to play for the Australian cricket team, even though you knew it was going to be a big thing, like did you realise how big it was until you're wearing the baggy green, you're bowling your first ball, you're in the field or you're batting?
Yeah.
You know, did it kind of hit you or was it what you expected?
No, it was way more than I expected. I don't think you can quite play up to what it was. Like I just look back on that whole first day of the first test and sort of how it all plays out. Like the cap presentation, I think that's going to be like one of my favourite memories ever. Like just sort of standing there knowing that you're about to receive your baggy green, which like every kid that grows up loving cricket, like that's what you aspire to have. So having that and then sort of, how the next couple of days played out was, far more than I ever imagined. And, it was just a crazy few days.
Well, hey, can you, and I always love trying to give the listeners a feeling of what it's like in your shoes and eyes, but can you try and explain how big it is, like that occasion? Is it too hard to put into
I don't know
words?
if I'll do it justice, but I think for me, I reflected on it with like everything that I'd sort of done over the last 10, 12 years with my cricket, like that's what I always aspired to do. So to actually have that come to fruition and like be out there, it was like just so surreal. And like even sharing a field with like the guys you've been watching on TV for the last 10 years, it's like, fuck, this is actually happening. Like there was times like, I remember before I bowled my first ball, like I was standing at the top of my mark and like my legs were shaking. I was like, fuck, this is like, I don't think I've ever been as nervous to bowl a ball, but I was like, fuck, this is actually happening. Like, this is just crazy. Like, I'm about to bowl a ball in Test cricket. And from there, I think when you get into the game a bit more, it sort of settles down. But definitely a few first where you just catch yourself and go, wow, this is happening.
Speaking of the cap 465 you got from Nathan Lyon, like that was a pretty powerful speech. He's a great speaker in regards to when he gets sort of deep and meaningful. I think he teared up when he gave Travis Head his cap, but just going through that, because I think your family was there as well. And I love that sort of initiation process they do where they give you the cap, they give you sort of everyone gets around you and so forth. But what was that feeling like, especially having like your old man there who I'm sure would have been, super stoked, maybe happier than you?
Yeah, I think it was so good like to be able to share that moment with them, and like they went on a bit of a mad dash to get over to India. So for them to be able to get there in time and share that with me, and that cap presentation, like to have a guy like Nathan Lyon who, for the last sort of 10 or however long I've been bowling off spin for, has been the guy that I've sort of idolised and wanted to be like, and to have him present me with my cap and know that I'm about to take the field with the Australian cricket team was, it was amazing.
Do you remember what he said?
Yeah, I do. He gave me two things. He said, never forget why you fell in love with the game. And all they can ask from me is just compete as hard as I can. And so that was sort of the two things that no matter what happened throughout that series, like I try to keep myself pretty level to that and just enjoyed it for what it was and don't get too caught up in the highs and lows of what's going on and just have a good time and then compete as hard as I could and see what happens.
Yeah, you know what's fascinating listening to Todd talk about this is because very humble, speaking about how surreal it is, and you'd think, you might be shy the occasion. Look, India may be spin friendly, but you took 7 wickets in the first match, which is nearly 50% of the possible amount you could take. So did you expect that you would have an impact, or what was, were you just in a rhythm once you got going? You just kind of gotten that sort of, I guess, sort of present space where you just stop thinking about anything else and you're just bowling off spin? Like, is that what sort of happened there? Because I think it was pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, I don't even know if I can explain it, but like it was just, I think it was one of those ones that just, I had a little bit go my way, like a little bit of luck, and I think everything just sort of aligned. And I look back at the night of day one where I got my first wicket. I think that sort of calmed me down nicely because I was like, okay, I've got a wicket now. Who
was the first one you got?
KL Rahul. So,
is he captain?
No, he was with their white ball team. He was their vice captain of the Test team.
Fuck, he's a big fish.
Yeah, so that was like to get a wicket sort of day one. I think that sort of settled me down nicely for the game, and then come back out the next day, and it sort of, because there's only 2 spinners playing, and that was like what we were bowling majority of the time. It was one of those ones that you just sort of, you knew you were going to have a pretty big part to play in the game from an overs point of view. So, and it just was lucky enough to have a few things go my way and get a few wickets. Well,
the thing as well is what's why India is so amazing to watch is not only are they superior at cricket and obviously tough wickets, but if you look at I always think from like the players' perspective, if you look at their batting lineup, like to get through 1 or 2 of them is a freaking huge challenge, let alone like their top 6 or 7 that are probably the best batters. Like you think of the players that don't bat for India that could, there's a huge list. So the ones that are in there are legendary.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it grueling to just get one of them out? I know it sounds stupid, but I mean, they are like the best in the world almost in, each one of them. I mean, you've got Kohli, you've got KL Rahul, Pujara. It's frightening.
Yeah, it is. And that was sort of the series. Like you just never felt you could actually make inroads into them, mate. Like you'd get a wicket and then the next guy would come out and all the way down to number 9, like they just kept coming and like it was tough work for everyone. And that's what I think makes cricket over there so good and makes going over there and trying to win a series so hard as well, because you know how good they are in their own conditions. So yeah, it was a tough challenge, but awesome in that as well.
What wicket were you proudest of? In India, I mean, who was the biggest fish in your eyes?
I think the one I was probably the most happy with was.
See, there's too many. Took 14 in the test.
I think, the first test where I got Jadeja out and we left it, I think I was probably most happy with how that was set up. I felt like I'd sort of the couple of overs leading up to it, I felt like I was sort of knew what I was trying to do, and to have that come off where I was able just to sort of slide one back in with and. To hit the stump without spinning was sort of what I was hoping to do. So that was nice. And then the couple that I got Kohli with was probably my highlight as well.
Yeah,
that was good fun.
That's what I was going to say. Is that's something you'll never not talk about?
Yeah, definitely. I think
he's one of the great. Justin Lange said he's the best batsman he's ever seen live.
It was like how easy he made it look when he was over there was ridiculous. And to have a couple of really good battles with him, I think no matter what happens for the rest of my cricket career, I think I'll always hold that pretty highly and be able to reflect on. Pretty fond of. It's
because cricket's a pretty blokey game in regards to you obviously leave a lot of it on the field. You have a beer after type culture. Was there anyone from India that kind of gave you props? Because obviously they're pretty, like if they're talking about spin bowling, they're talking legitimate. But did anyone sort of give you words of advice or come over and say, well bowled, mate, and stuff like that?
Yeah, they were all really actually really good. Sort of at the end of each game, they all come over and said, really well bowled, mate, like awesome work. And then at the end of the series, Ravi Ashwin said some really good words as well, which was pretty cool.
Mad.
And he was saying, how impressed he was sort of by my versatility and that over there. So to hear, stuff like that was crazy. And then Rahul Dravid, their coach, who's an absolute god over there, he come out and said that our spin attack was the best spin attack they've sort of played against in the last 10, 12 years. So that was to hehear that and to be a part of that was pretty crazy as well. So. Yeah, it was an awesome time.
Well, so now, because obviously I think the next big series is it the Ashes?
Yeah, so we got the World Test Championship final coming up, which is against India in England, and then following that we got 5 Test Ashes series. So it's pretty crazy time coming up.
Is that for you even though because obviously India there was conditions, there was all that sort of stuff. Now you've actually gone in and made an impact. Is that a selection dilemma for that? Like, have you given the selectors a headache here, which is a good thing?
Yeah, I hope so. I think obviously it's sort of completely different conditions going to England now, and I don't think there'll be probably a time where they'll play 2 spinners over there. But even to be a part of the squad would be pretty cool, and just sort of see how it all goes, and go over there and be able to learn a bit about English conditions, and be there as backup for Nathan Lyon would be pretty cool as well. So hoping that might come my way, but I have to see what happens.
Interesting. Well, speaking of Nathan Lyon, Gary Lyon, I always call him because of the keepers and people behind the stumps always say Bowl and Gary. But what's it like playing with him? Because he seems like probably the most relatable bloke going around, because he's pretty down to earth. He's pretty funny, but also then he goes out and he's winning test matches off his own bowling.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like this god, but also you feel like you know who he is as a bloke at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. I think all the boys still joke about he's one of the most nervous guys there is. So
what does he do to make him?
I don't know, but before I made my debut, Marcus Harris, who plays for Victoria as well and has played for Australia, he messaged me, he said, "Congrats, mate, go well." And I was like, "Thanks, mate, absolutely shit myself." And he goes, "Well, you won't be the most nervous bloke out there. Just remember that." So it's pretty well documented how nervous he gets, but I think it's probably just comes back to. And especially over there, there's probably a bit of performance anxiety for him, and he knows how big of an impact he can have. So, him for me, especially that first test match where I was sort of just feeling my way and still pretty nervous out there. He was a great influence and was able to come up and talk to me all the time and calm me down, or let me know what's going on and all that sort of stuff. So, and I think for him, he's just. I don't know, he just continues to get better and better, and I think he's sort of growing in confidence now, and he knows how good he is, which is it's cool to see as well.
Just probably for every Australian cricketer ever that's come into the test side, but particularly this test squad, like when you walk into that change room, you're looking kind of left and right, and there's probably like a legend in every seat. Like, what was that like? The camaraderie, sort of trying to adjust to not being a fan, but like a teammate, because that I can imagine is tough. Like for me, if I sat next to Steve Smith, I'd probably catch myself just watching him like, that's fucking Steve Smith. Do you know what I mean? Like, did those moments kind of happen to you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the boys took the piss out of me a fair bit. Like, just
really?
the way I sort of shadowed Nathan Lyon, like I was sort of just following him everywhere. And, like, it's one of those things that like the team they've got over there, like there'd be half a dozen guys that are probably going to go down as some of the greatest players in Australian history. So like for me as a young guy, like I am a bit of a fan as well. And like I've grown up watching it, and it's cool to be a part of it, and like you're just sort of loving and embracing what's going on and watching them.
Most of them have been playing in this test side for like across the last 10 years.
Yeah, they got a pretty like well settled side.
Yeah,
I think that also what made it really good to come into. They were all quite comfortable with each other, and it's a pretty settled changing room, which was good to be a part of as well.
Yeah. Speaking of blokes shadowing each other, it's been well documented, but I wanted to get your view on it. Is the Smudge, Steve Smith and Marnus relationship like? Is that entertaining to watch? Is it genuine? Like, is it fucking, are they as weird as it looks?
Yeah, I don't think I've met two rarer people, but like,
really? Why are they rare?
I don't know. They just work for them though. Like I think and when it comes to cricket, they think about it differently to a lot of people, but like in just such an in-depth way. And they've just got like an amazing confidence in the way they think, like, you're wrong, I'm right. Like, I'll make this work for me. It's quite crazy. Like they're just so strong-minded, and that's obviously what makes them so good. But yeah, it's a weird dynamic them too, but they make it work.
Like, were you? I mean, obviously you've been bowling against great batters. You're bowling against Kohli and so forth. But watching Steve Smith and Marnus bat up close, like, is it as crazy and efficient and just amazing as it probably should seem?
Yeah, I think like what stood out to me was just how confident they were in their method, and like they just didn't go away from that at all. Like they stuck to it, and then if they felt they could tinker with something, they'd tinker with it and be confident that mid-game or mid-series that whatever change they made, they were good enough to execute as well. Like, and the work they put into their training and like how long they'd bat for in the nets and that, and how precise they were there with them was pretty amazing to see.
Was there anyone when you're sitting in the pavilion watching from the Australian standpoint where when you watch them bat, you're like in awe? Like it might not be the obvious one, but just someone that you'd like, this guy's a superstar.
In those conditions over there it was tough to be
there's really
faultless.
Hard to bat, right?
There was a lot going on, but I think a couple of innings that Usman Khawaja played, like just a bit different to everyone else, the way he swept, and that was quite amazing to watch. But then the one that stood out for me, and it was a bit flatter in the last test, but I think Cameron Green, I think he's going to go down as one of our best players ever. Like
everyone talks about.
He's scary good. And
his batting hasn't I don't think, because maybe the test average or whatever, but like he is an unbelievable batsman, isn't he?
He is, and I think like he's just growing in confidence. And that first 100 to get over there, I think that'll like he'll go on from now. Like, and I think he's going to be a crazy.
Because how old is he? Is he your age?
He'd be a year older than me, so 23.
And he's how 6 foot?
Oh, he's massive. Yeah.
So he bowls quick.
Yeah.
And I mean, does he have the potential to even move up the order?
Yeah, I think so. I think he could bat sort of wherever he wanted to bat. But
really? He's that good?
I think like with how good he is as a bowler as well, it probably makes it hard to bat at sort of 3 or 4 with the demands of what you need to do in a game. But yeah, he's frightening good.
He's kind of experienced now as well. Like he's been around for like 3-4 summers.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and he's only a year older. So that would have been a bit weird to kind of connect with him because he's your age. But like this guy knows, he's been around this system for a while.
He has. And I think that's sort of like, I think you can see now how comfortable he sort of feels in that environment, and you can see his confidence is growing. But it was nice to have someone like similar age over there as well that you can relate to a little bit.
If we go into probably your summary of what you got out of India experience, because you play 4 matches, you took 14 wickets, good average. Obviously, it was tough with the bat for anyone, but you got to experience like high level cricket in India, which everyone said is probably the toughest tour away. But sort of, if you could summarize the India experience, like for you and what you got out of it.
Yeah, it was a different world over there. But I think like from a cricket sense, what I got out of it was just a bit of confidence, and I think going over there, and I think I've always sort of doubted myself a little bit with off-spin bowling and sort of what I can do. So to be able to go over there and compete at that level and, know that what I'm doing is working in a sense, that just gives me confidence coming back here, and then knowing sort of what I can work on to get myself back to that point. And that's sort of getting a taste for that's what you want to do for sort of the rest of my career. So.
Do you when you play for Australia, do you have a spin coach? I mean, is it like I'm Nathan Lyon? I'm probably know more about this.
Dan Vittori's a bowling coach.
Oh, he's Dan Vittori, the bowling coach?
Yeah, but obviously helps. He was a world-class spinner as well. So that was quite cool that was quite cool to have him there and be able to bounce ideas off him. But yeah, I think it's quite rare for sort of a spin in a tour to have a spin party there. So it was good to have sort of 4 or 5 of us there to bounce ideas off as well, because it's usually only 1 or 2 that travel. What is
it about the Indian tracks that makes it spin so much? Like, because everyone always talks about day one, people open the bowling with spin. It's weird.
Yeah, I think they got different soil contents in their wickets over there, which obviously are more spin abrasive and that. And then, I don't really know what it is, but and their spinners have always been so good, and that's just one of their biggest strengths. So they play up to that, and they make the wicket spin, and they know that that's the toughest for anyone to play against.
Oh, God. Was there, well, actually, I want to ask you this because I want to ask you your greatest Australian cricket 11 of all time.
Okay.
Todd Murphy.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Great question.
Because we've had a pretty, like in our lifetime, we've had a pretty fortunate period to watch.
Is this just what I've seen or?
No, I'm going to go historical. All right. But I want it Australian selections only.
Yeah, we'll go with Matthew Hayden. This test match as well?
Yeah, test match. Oh, so this is opening batting.
Yeah, Matthew Hayden. And I'll go David Warner.
David Warner. Yeah. Beautiful. 2 left-handers.
Bradman, Ponting.
That's fucked. Bradman's at the 3.
Yeah, Bradman can go 3.
Ricky's
Ponting
gone
4. Down.
Jeez.
Steve Smith, 5.
It's tough.
Yeah, this is tough.
Have you never thought of this?
No, I don't have an end all rounder because the bowlers will do the job anyway. 6, Greg Chappell.
Oh, he's gone Chappelli.
7, Gilchrist. 8, Warne. 9, McGrath.
Is McGrath going to bat at 9?
Probably not. He can go to 11.
No offense, Glenn.
Oh, God. Now there's 2 more quicks to go in there.
I mean, we've got a pretty good quick team now. Then
I'll put
Brett Lee.
I'll put Pat Cummins in there.
You got Dennis Lilly, Jeff Thompson. Jesus.
Yeah, we'll go Lilly. Lilly and Cummins to finish it off.
Oh my God, that's an elite lineup.
Team,
that is an elite lineup. Oh my God.
And there's probably 10 or 15 guys that quite comfortably come into that as well.
Ricky Ponting at 4. He's stiff. Bradman though ahead of him. Have you ever met Ricky Ponting?
I think I have, but that would have been 5 or 6 years ago. So
well, I find myself, and this is cricket geek in me, I watch him do his coaching speeches at Delhi Capitals.
Yeah, how good is it?
Fuck me. He's like Coach Carter.
Yeah.
Like, and he's just so, everything's on, he hits a nail on the head.
Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah, I don't know what like, is that common in cricket for a coach to have that much power and influence? Because I feel like cricket's always been a little bit untraditional where it's like the coach is there to facilitate, not dominate. It's definitely the captain's job.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I don't know, I don't know if there is anyone that sort of speaks about the game as well as he does. And I think it's one of those ones that what he says is just like everyone listens to and it's correct. It's just spot on.
Mate. All right. Well, we're gonna round out. I've got 2 things for you though before I go. And this maybe the first one I'll let you sit on, but the first one to sit on, favourite cricket saying. There's quite a few.
Yeah, there is.
There's a few mystery ones out there, but I'll let you think about that because we do have a question we always go to on the podcast, and it's how we round it out. But we test 3 key traits to being successful in business or sport, and all 3 are important. But one that sort of made Todd Murphy, resilience, drive, or ambition. Which one was critical in your journey? You've had a pretty speed rocket drive in the last 12 months. So.
Yeah, they obviously all play a part. I think I'd put ambition at the top though, because I reckon that sort of fueled everything else. Like the ambition of playing for Australia has always been there, and that's something that like I've always said I wanted to do. So I think, sort of drive and resilience in the background plays a big part in that. But I think the ambition was what made me turn up to training and what made me work hard. So I'll probably hold that the highest.
Just on quickly on the baggy green, is it like wearing a cloud? Like it looks like the most comfortable hat ever. I wouldn't say it's fashionista type look, but it does look like you put that on and it's just like got cooling and heating and aircon or something in there. Like it's.
Yeah, I think there's just something about it that like it just works. And like putting on even, it doesn't matter what it is. Like first time putting on like at the end of the series, putting it on for the last time, like it just has a special feeling when you do put it on. And I think it sort of makes you want to go out there and like, who you're representing and all that. So,
and what's with blokes not wanting to adopt a new one? Like,
Well,
why do people? What's the culture with wearing it into the ground until it falls apart?
Well, I think it just sort of highlights your journey because there's not many guys, I suppose, that get to that stage where they've got the baggy green falling apart. And
is it a flex?
well, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's a low key alpha move. That it's like that
is way too fresh.
Yeah,
for your head, mate.
exactly right. Like I think it just it shows how much beer's been poured over it and how many days in the dirt they've had. So it is, I suppose, a nice thing to hold on to.
Oh, cricketing saying or words of wisdom to the young kids out there that kind of have always kind of played on your mind when you've played cricket?
I've never really lived by anything sort of in a cricket sense or saying wise, but you put me on the spot here.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, my favourite one is Don Bradman, keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah, well,
that's just so simple, but it's so true.
I think with cricket, like a lot of people can complicate it in a way, like with how they view the game, but it does come back to a lot of the time, I think, just simple things like that.
Yeah.
And I think even the best players in the world would come back to that a lot of the time if they're struggling a little bit. It's just to go back to watching the ball, and that's what works for them. So
that's a great answer.
I think cricket can be complicated, so keep it simple.
There we go. I've got a feeling this podcast, and hopefully we get you back on, but this podcast over time is going to get even greater and greater with Todd Murphy's journey, because only, 22, 23 turning this year. Yeah. The world is your oyster, mate. Bowling spin for Australia doesn't get much better, mate. So thank you for coming on the Unlaced podcast. We absolutely appreciate it. And I reckon we got to go out there and have a look at this deck, this green pitch.
No worries, mate. Thank you for having me on. I enjoyed that.
Pleasure.